Hey, good morning and good evening and good afternoon and wherever you are. It's good to see you all back again. You challenged me to explain my what I actually do. I don't even know and remember how we got there. But the task is really interesting because what is it that I actually do and how does it really fit into that public typical picture that probably the TOGAF or something draws of an architect shop. So I tried to pin it down a bit and prepare a bit of a board for you and challenge you with some questions that often encounter to me. The things that I see I couldn't find anything for Salesforce architecture that goes into that how I see myself, how my customers see myself. But I for inspiration. I put something together, and the typical thing that I often see is a mixture between Gandalf and Jesus, where Gandalf more or less represents wisdom and the know-it-all personality, whereas Jesus brings in the myth of being able to fix things out of magical capabilities or so. While in a sense, I often feel like I'm teaching a kind of group of kids that don't really want to follow along. From the customer side, it's often more like, "Hey, I'm calling in at the doctor, or I'm calling the one kind of person who has the superpowers to align the company behind what I'm trying to do." This is what Obama stands for. On on the technical side, I actually quite often a plumber, a to who kind of connects the things and gets pipes unstuck and unclogged. This is what I often do. So, how would I explain to my kids? Good thing my kids are older than 5 years now, so they understand a bit more, but they still often only see the Salesforce colors on my screen. I did my best. I'm open for your critique and ideas. What I do is I help my clients to get some kind of computer software. I know it's not software. I know software, no software. But this software helps them to do their work in a better way or faster way or less stressful way. And it helps them to serve their customers better, faster, more in a way that they might expect. So what I do is, like a doctor, I find out and try and find out what the problem is. In this case, what kind of problems do they want to solve? I try to find solutions and discuss the options that we have. And once I have a solution, I'm most often responsible to guide my team to build the solution. And all the time, I'm responsible to make sure that I planned for everything and planned ahead and considered everything so that nothing breaks and all the things work better together in the future than they were before.
That sounds like you're a
And
wizard, Harry.
it is this is the kind of the modesty of an architect is probably being the wizard and still pretending to be the plumber, right? Okay, what's your judgment? Is that accurate? Is that did I lose my 5-year-old already, or how did I do?
But first of all, Daniel, do you want to just introduce yourself, please? Tell us who you are.
Oh yes, Jodie. Okay, to discuss the big question, we have a group of excellent people from around the world, and that's why I said good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are. I'm the host for today in this excellent group. Daniel Stange is a Salesforce MVP, technical architect, CTO, based in Frankfurt, Germany. And with me is a group of evenly skilled people who might or might not call themselves architects. We will hear. Next in the line is Ines Garcia from London.
Thank you. So, well, I don't like to put myself in a box. I will say that I work for myself. I'm a generalist and I like it. I help organizations to reduce waste, and that's waste of time, of effort, of finance, of materials. And that could be by improving the tech stack and their operations, as well as to their marketing, and then physically, like the products that they deliver, how they deliver in a way that is better for the people, for the product, and for the planet. And would Christian like to go next?
Good morning. My name is Christian Szandor Knapp, and I live in Daniel's box. That means I work for him as a technical evangelist for the Salesforce space. So my turf is education and improvements, and I love what Ines does because it describes goals that myself I have too. Do I fit into the architecture category? I think formally yes, because I hold architect certificate in Salesforce.
Okay, another
Next
nice, interesting point.
goes Andre.
Yeah, hi, I'm Andre, also a freelance consultant, and I'm based in the Netherlands. I would not call myself an architect. Well, not in the technical sense, but no, I help the customer or a company architecting their new process and their new business and all that kind of stuff. I would not be able to explain my job to a 5-year-old. Hopefully, in half an hour I can. And next one, Roy.
Hi, my name is Roy Gilad. I'm located in Israel. I am also a Salesforce MVP, as all the beautiful people in this call. I consider myself, in the past, I was a technical architect. Now I'm considering myself more of a solution architect in that sense. And I help companies understand what their subscription management does and their annual recurring revenue. That's what I do. And back to you, Daniel. Oh, sorry. No, we missed Jodie. Sorry,
we missed Jodie.
Sorry, and Jodie.
So I'm Jodie Miners. I am in Melbourne, Australia, so it's getting dark behind me. So I'm a tech generalist like Ines. I work for myself like Ines. I am a certified application architect and certified system architect with Salesforce. I would call myself a solution architect. Yeah. So, and I don't know how about I would explain it to a 5-year-old. So I don't have that many 5-year-olds around me. So.
Excellent. The big thing is you all mentioned things that I didn't put on my board actually, which basically is a sectoral breakdown of architect into areas of concern like business. I heard that. I also heard solutions. I also heard technical matters. I heard a term that I would claim for myself had I not forgotten it for the introduction. Ines said generalist, and probably generalist is the most precise explanation of what an architect actually does. Let's zoom out a bit, because if you look at the definition or the schema that TOGAF, the open group that actually issues the biggest certification or the biggest certification framework behind architecture, named namely the TOGAF Enterprise Architecture Certification Set. They have these kind of things. But there's also the business, there's the vision, but there's also a breakdown into the actual doing in requirements management, but also technical architecture. Does it help us to define what an architect does? You can probably find your box in here, but it doesn't get to the point where what actually helps people to understand what's actually happening. It just defines areas of concern where we should focus. So that probably helps managers to get a flashy key visual for the next slide, but probably not us to get a deeper understanding. So the point I'd like to discuss with you is the way how you become an architect. We can probably start counterintuitive at the lower right box. What architecture actually is, because I couldn't really get to that point when I was thinking about it. Are we talking about a job role? Are we talking about an experience level? Is this an expertise level in some kind of thing? So the Gandalf way. Is it probably a mindset of going of a broader vision? Is it a particular skill, or is it just the other way around? Is it a unique combination of skills, or is it even broader, not a unique unicorn of very highly developed skilled, but a broad set of enough developed skills in the skills that make something? What is your take? What would you say?
I think those are all part of it. And I think it does require the expertise and experience. And the mindset is really important too, because you've got to put your business hat on and think about from the inside of the business out, not about what the tool can do, because you're not putting a solution to the problem, but you are finding out what the business needs and then finding what solution is for that business. So that's a different mindset, I think, also.
I would very much like to go a tiny step back towards the explain it to a 5-year-old question. And we are already into the Salesforce or technical architect specifics or business architect specifics of architecture. So I would really love to try at least to think about, okay, what does it mean to be an architect? And we are talking to 5-year-olds, and I'm not offering it a perfect answer, but if I were talking to a 5-year-old, I would at least start my preparation. That's a thing to say, okay, what is it that I expect from an architect? And I would expect from an architect to build or help build something that is stable, reusable, and secure. So if I want him to build or her to build a house, I want to use it more than one time. I want to feel secure in that house in terms of coziness and stuff like that. And obviously I'm going to the architect or have an architect because I myself do not know or don't have the experience, the lifelong experience of a craftsman to build a house. And now the question is, how would I explain the difference between a craftsman and an architect? And I think at that level, we need to actually say, no, it's a very experienced craftsman. He knows or has at least watched how to build things. He has generations of other craftsmen before her and craftswomen before her that built up that knowledge. And you went and learned a lot. And once things get more complicated and once more people start building, you need a boss of builder and someone who says, okay, that's the way how we do it. And now we can try to get the technical focus in there, but I want to reiterate that stable, secure, reusable are core needs, I believe, that we can all agree on when we say we're looking at architecture questions.
That's a very good point.
And
You missed a bit in terms of the you're a bit biased already in terms of the well-architected principles, which I like the pointer, but and you made an adjustment. When you think of what architects are, architects as the role in that we typically see in building, this is basically where we're using a verb or a noun that is already introduced in one area of work and transfer it to another work where it kind of does the same thing. An architect, and let me just this one objection. It does your argument still holds valuable, but there's an objection. When architects in building learn something, they are never really into doing the craft of building the house. What they learn is the materials, the mathematics behind a house. So an architect, in the old terms, is something who has the theory behind the things that the craftsmen do. This is the
Yes, but you couldn't
this-
exist without them, without the previous
exactly,
knowledge of
exactly.
generations.
Exactly. It is an ancient, almost ancient trait that evolved from being the craftsman, of trying to carry over the knowledge that accumulated in the craftsman into another trade. So you don't have to be the expert, but you collect the knowledge of the experts before you. And it's taken a very good turn, but I just wanted to make this objection because it's a common misconception. Andre, I know you had your hand raised long ago, but I wanted to make this objection. Your turn.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I would only like to add one extra thing, like, out of the mind of a 5-year-old. Would it make sense to start with the basic of the framework? Like, it is you as a person going to a business, most of the times as an external person, and as an architect, what you then come up with is a design or a sketch or drawing, something like that. And that's when you go to all the other sticky notes that you just drew.
I like that. So we could also go and say, if you draw, like the 5-year-old, if you draw a house, do you think anybody could build it from that drawing? And maybe the answer is yes, and the estimation is no, you cannot really build it because I don't see the back wall and I have no idea how the roof can be as shaky as it is here in my drawing. So that would be also a very great description. And now you go to an architect and say, give me a drawing that helps me to actually build this house.
There is one thing that lingers in my mind related to stable, reusable, and secure. I think in the context that we are in, which is software, technology, and digital, I would probably also add emerging, right? It needs to, yes, be stable, reusable components so you can go faster and be smarter in the way that you build things. Secure, but also it emerged because it's changing all the time, right? Like the games the 5-year-old probably plays is never the same. There is always new things coming. And somehow also makes me think in the comment just from Andre now, so a way that, you craft, you sort of sketch it, it's super important that you also build it because it emerged. And so for me, my experience is very useful to don't alienate yourself too much from the day to day because things emerge. So if you only draw, but don't go to site, don't play with the new techniques that emerge, then you have problems coming down the line. And I think it's very important in the context that we are. Try new functionality, try new frameworks, try new things, and evolve the technology. Be part of the active movement that evolves where we're going. And it's important for me, that's important as an architect.
And I would love to add that the emerging part also adds to the tradition or principles part versus actual goals. So the difference between the building architect and the software architect is that the building architect doesn't have, or at least maybe even the Salesforce architect and a house architect, let's put it frankly, the house doesn't change much after I got it, right?
Does
I
it?
move in and not in fundamental ways. So in terms of, I have a certain area that I own and that's where I can put my house on. Now, in terms of software, I can grow and grow and add and add and add easily because there's usually no one telling me, well, sorry, that's the end of your land and here my land begins, so you can build more. And but what I also mean, especially in Salesforce, is that we have new releases, new features, new things coming up 3 times a year. And usually you don't go to your architect 3 times a year and say, okay, let's redo this completely. I want to move the bathrooms from upstairs to downstairs because I found the walking ways are too long. But if a Salesforce person, a customer comes to you and says, look, we tried this now for half a year and it's not really it's not getting adopted. People hate the click path. It's too many clicks. Can we redo this? And then you do migration. You do this, you do that. You do a huge project, and that you do regularly. And you need to challenge each time if the principles you applied last time are still a fit for this time. And because we also said architecture has a lot of knowledge and tradition, it's probably also fair to say, yes, the principles that we will be talking or are talking about are also applicable to new emerging stuff because they're time proven.
Yeah, but exactly this point.
Great thing emerging. I love it.
Yeah, but exactly in that point, even traditional house building architecture is still in the craft to build the house in a way that it can be the basis for something that you don't know, but will be available in the future. So the room I'm currently in has been the kitchen of the house before. And where the kitchen is now there has been the living room. And we have had another kitchen in this house, which is now the guest room. So when rebuilding and renovating the house, we took good care to make room for kind of utility tunnels where you could push things around without changing the whole architecture of the building again, but make it flexible and adaptable for future needs. And when kids moved in, first one, then two, the whole thing and layout changed again. So I'm pretty sure that even houses are still kind of how to call it flexible things, emerging products that you created at some time without the good idea. I mean, the things that could happen to a house are a bit more plannable and foreseeable than it is in technology. That's for sure, and you have a point there.
And thinking about emerging things, we've just been through the biggest upheaval in most of the businesses that we work with history. And how many of the businesses that you work with have done something to re-architect something after COVID? So one of my businesses are in retail, in shopping centers, and their business just fell off a cliff in March 2020. And so they did a lot of work over COVID and completely re-architected the way they actually did business, and really have come through it really quite well. But we had to actually go in there and redo a lot of the work we've done, change the things, and that's still going on now. Even a year later, that we are still changing things from the effects of COVID. So that's really important, I think.
I think just to add to what was just said, I think that the principle of what is an architect is the same if it's a house or a company or a Salesforce. Doesn't matter. What does matter is the pace. With three, as Christian said, with 3 releases a year, you need to change constantly. With the COVID and businesses changes, you need to change constantly. The house, it will change, but the time frame will be different. It will be a matter of years when you change the architecture of a house, even decades. And also, going back to our core Salesforce item in technology in general, the technology is still evolving. And by that, the principles that while structuring your architectural mindset are constantly changing, because both new technologies, new frameworks, new architectures that are actually new techniques, and of course architecture mindset or mind. So yes, constantly changing. That's what I wanted just to iterate.
Let me take a note of that.
And I really like the analogies of construction and architecture of software, because my background is that I was the architectural draftsperson right out of school, and then a builder after that. So I'm uniquely qualified to talk about both of them.
Yeah. I have quite a number of friends or a friend who used to start at the drawing board, then learned the craft, and which completely she always wanted to be an architect, didn't get the into the studies, then did a apprenticeship for drawing technical solutions, then learned the trade, and then returned to architecture, which made her mind completely different than what she was just after school. So very interesting how this really changes your mindset.
Yeah, age
Okay.
does that.
Should we that points to a point that I wanted to discuss with you, and I think we can leave it for the time being with that kind of definition, which I really like. We were talking about experience and skill, and one thing that I raised is the level of experience that is needed. One conception that and also the next topic besides that is what kind of expertise do you actually need? I think Szandor brought up the point of craftsmanship turning into conceptual knowledge is probably something that's really important here. One misconception that I typically hear is an architect in software needs to be a developer, and the other way around, a developer who is in the trade for a number of years and did so and so many projects is qualified to be an architect. Both, I think, don't work. But what's your take? What is experience that an architect needs, and how much of expertise do they actually need in these areas?
First of all, I would always ask for, and that's by now also taken by Salesforce Architects, for an architectural mindset. And that doesn't necessarily mean you are working as an architect. I think everyone who configures Salesforce could improve or could reap benefits. That's what I'm saying. Get benefits from an architectural mindset. And that's a big, big bad word. I mean, if you build responsibly, if you build close to the requirements of the users who are dear to your heart, you're already putting some of those architectural things into practice. And it really starts for me with the itty-gritty little things like field naming even. And I don't say how you should do it. I should just say do it consistently and stick to it until the end of days. And these are things that we can learn early on in a Salesforce career as soon as we are on the setup side of things.
Can I take out close to users' needs? Because sometimes the users' needs are not the business needs, or put a superset on top of users to say the business needs. Because if we go to the users' needs, we'll have, 15 checkboxes on the page, or, eclectic lists.
Yeah.
Debatable. They don't need checkboxes. They need something
thank you,
else.
Ines. Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what I wanted to challenge you. Isn't this just a kind of triangle of things where what you build, what your users need, and what your business needs, and somewhere in between there's the truth that the things that you can build that they want to have, and that actually promotes business. I think it has to be a balance somewhere.
And
that's why in TOGAF there was requirements management. Sorry, Jodie. In the TOGAF picture shot, in the center it was requirements management, right? So wasn't that? Exactly that, right? Your pyramid, but now as a circle, and at the end it centers around finding out what to build, and not only what to build, but also how to build, how to maintain it, all the other stuffs, that migration, governance, everything we see here.
Yeah.
So
yes,
I think this picture. Sorry, just. I really like the physics of it, the tension of the arrows going in the both direction, because that's what we go through the motions every day, is the tension of managing those requirements versus, how you're going to handle that overall visions, how you're going to handle change, how you're going to handle governance, and having that tension, it keeps us in our toes, and we should be able to handle it in a way that enable us to get better at what we do. Therefore, craftsmanship.
One thing I think that's missing there, and it goes back to your image of the school children, Daniel, is the education aspect of what is a CRM, what is a software platform, what is a cloud, how do we use this, all that sort of stuff. Like, what is even possible with Salesforce? Like, or what is impossible with a software system? I just did a great demo last week where I was just showing them what is possible. You've got to educate some people in technology generally as to what is even technically possible and possible within their budget and timeframes also. What's realistic? Yeah, it's good. And what's realistic and budgets comes under governance. But governance is such a dry topic that it gets lost in the how to name things and how to do the technical aspects of software architecture. Whereas it's still got to come back to the business. What is budget, time?
No, we shouldn't be too forgiving to this model, because the double-sided arrows point a bit at kind of all is interrelated. There's also the ABC cadence. So the overall idea of enterprise architecture frameworks is basically it starts somewhere and it ends somewhere, and it goes into a predefined circle of hierarchical things, which is exactly not what Ines was lobbying for, and what I think is really important, because these things don't happen in isolation and in a strict cadence, but rather in a permanent. And this is where the Obama president's politician style came in. This is exactly what you have to be on the at the point where these arrows are to make something successful. It's not can probably be weak in 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of the bubbles, but if you're weak on the arrow side, then it all will collapse probably. Okay. So we're already progressed, and I didn't hear you need to be an expert in this, or you need to be a developer, which is an opinion that I share and would like to propagate. Yet it is a conception that people have. So but what about experience? What actually is experience?
Can I maybe point into
yes,
one tiny direction in terms of the developer? So at the end of the day, if you create a field on opportunity, that has certainly an architectural impact. But we all, from architect to admin to business users, talk about a field on the opportunity. Now, if you go into other softwares, you will see that when people start talking about them, they start talking about many, many layers and many, many layers of abstractions as well. And especially if you're a developer coming from outside Salesforce, you're used to this kind of language, how they abstract things. You're used to those kinds of patterns, how things work outside of Salesforce, because software craftsmanship and architecture is also a field with lots of years of experience. And there's the connects, I think, between, it doesn't make you a better architect, but it can open your mind to forms of abstractions that are common outside your own Salesforce sphere, and which you will immediately need to understand and grasp and talk about when you talk with people outside the Salesforce bubble, who don't care about the field of opportunity, they care about OAuth 2 or their interface or anything in that direction.
Yeah. Oh, you're striking a chord. You're striking a chord there, because the thing that I like to challenge a lot is we might be in some kind of interpretation of what the TOGAF framework is about, but I think describe Salesforce implementation as software development, we're probably a bit off, because I think we're not building software here. And I see from just around the globe, I see heavy nodding and shaking their head, because I think that's a point where we had. I will show you. I will run you through an experiment in a few minutes. But can we? Let's probably wrap it up. What actually is the? Because we often talk about the sage, the architect as the sage. Is it that way? In some way, it is, I think. But what actually makes this kind of experience that this sage has? How do you become the sage? What do you have to practice in?
Having stuffed it up so many times before, so you've learned from your mistakes.
No, you need to learn the proper magic words.
Yeah.
At the end, you can also fake it until you make it.
Yeah.
Isn't that what most consultants do?
Yeah.
It's called learning on the job.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Do you notice that we have no technical things on this still?
Yeah, I was about to break that, I think. So if we look at the 4 items we were talking about, I like to put things on matrix. Some of you already know that. So if we put at the top of a matrix, the scalable, reusable, secure, and emerging, and on the side of the matrix, we put, for example, the layers, and we can probably like extend it with many other things. So in terms of user interface, integration layer, database, different bits over there. And then what do you need to do if you want to see how is your experience versus an architect is fill it up with stories and tools that helps you to do exactly those things. Meaning, how can I keep in mind the reusability when I'm looking at user interface? Or, you know, you start like matching these items. So how can I consider emerging when I'm looking at integration? And that can be applied in any job, I think. I really like to put things in matrix. So if you're looking at this recording and you're like, oh, I really don't know with my experience, do this exercise. Because for me, a lot of the things is about how, one, you become aware of your experience, if that's the right word. And second, how you narrate that experience in your conversations. Because what a role, a admin, a developer is considered in a context, it may differ a lot into another context. But if that's the framework that we're talking about, fill it up. What's your experience? And that those stories, those tools that you use, that you have in your back pocket, is going to help you to narrate, I think, and to see where you have gaps, how you're going to fill it up.
And also, I would say that continuing Ines's thought about different areas, you could be an architect about how user interact with your with the software, with your solution, while not being the technical architect or the backend architect. Meaning, if we look at the architect, as we said, as the expert, as the Sega, you're not necessarily need to be an expert in all domains. You could be in one vertical, like in the UX framework, and be a UX architect, and then to be an integration architect. That's a different person in the company or in the project, and you could be a solution architect and a technical architect. So, as Ines said, there are many layers to it, and being the architect doesn't need that you have to have all the answers to all the different questions. You need to know your strengths, and you know where you are a craftsman, maybe on that level. You need to know where you do have the architectural experience and mindset, and so that's also
that
very,
is so true. And we don't work in silos. The wonderful thing is that you're going to have heaps of people around you. So how can you tap into the existing potential? That's also a way to fill up those gaps.
Well, sorry to be
undebatable
blunt, by
in
talking
the
people. You talk to people. What else should you do? You try to talk to people, to build relations, to get behind them and understand their motivation and needs and sorrows. And especially if there's tensions between business and users, you sometimes just need to listen and nod, and things will progress that way as well. I love it that we all do center and focus a lot of the human and interactional side, whilst being all very aware that we do talk a lot of tech as well a lot of the time.
And if we just divert for a little more into the education system, right? We are used to of learning things by ourselves, but when we apply our learnings in the real world, we're not by ourselves. So I think there is an important gap over there of the adaptation of learning and how we learn together, how we build together, how we design and craft together. And it matters. It matters because the product is better the more heads and eyes you put on it.
I really like that, Ines. It's a really nice way of thinking.
I think we could just stop right here.
Okay. Okay. Indeed, very insightful. I want to. I ran an experiment for myself, and I want to show you the outcomes because it combines with what we said so far. And and the story is. There is Sebastian Wagner invent CTA coach and architect evangelist supreme runs a 100 days of architecture series, and he asked the question what actually makes an architect, and I sieved through all the answers and tried to find out what people think what really makes an architect, and give them kind of classify where this goes. And what I found is that the level of experience for modesty or whatever, or focus on technical things, is really, really small. I have no idea. I mean, it could be one thing that is really, really large, but you just have to mention it once. For example, a professional football player needs to know how to play football. So playing football is basically just one trait that he has, or one skill that he has, but the scale of that is overwhelming. But what I found is that a lot of things kind of seem to go into personality. My thought: are we judging probably the people who are architects as role models for who can be an architect? Is this really something that is necessary? And on the other hand, there are a lot of skills that can be learned, but most of them are kind of either techniques, methods, and also strongly tied to communication, which is something I'd propose that most of the architect job is a kind of facilitator, communicator role. Let me go a bit through that things. We have things around leadership and the system that Ines mentioned, like mentoring, coaching, but also personal traits, empathy, positivity, whatever that is, modesty, whatever that is. So modesty often comes with bragging, but in another way. But also the skill to think in a complex way and analyze things, solve problems, have the mentality to learn for a full life. Things that are kind of really the trait of managing projects, like time management, resource management, general project management, planning, resolving conflicts, handle objections, asking good questions, so inquiring in the right way, communicating effectively, whatever that is. Recombine different standpoints and really feel the different standpoints, but also visualize, present, verbalize, debate, listen, explain, articulate, translate. Translate is, by the way, some area where I come from. Translate things from one place to the other. Translation, I think, is an important thing. Uplift a team and facilitate, work as a team, but also create alignment, negotiation. I think this area is really, really large, and it has nothing to do with the technical skill. And probably my assumption, and probably the point where I can kick off the final round of discussion for today is when we think of who's actually suitable to be an architect, what do you really need, or at which stage in your career can you be that? Is it probably where you have developed enough experience that you don't really need the technical skill or a specific small point of expertise that shapes your identity, but rather go beyond that kind of professional identity and really just do the thing you do? Is it just as simple as that you have the routine to look beyond the things that you are doing? Can this even start earlier in your career?
It's interesting.
Do architects have to be old or experienced or kind of settled in their professional ways?
Yes. In certain areas, yes, because I can go to you and ask you, hey, Daniel, I have a client with standard sales cloud and a bit of marketing cloud and 2 journeys. What do you think? 10 days, 20 days, 30 days. And yes, you say X days, and that's a pretty accurate statement. I, for myself, cannot answer that question for lack of expertise. I never had that project, and I never had it a second, a third, and a fourth time, so I can't give you an average estimate. And this is something I would expect not from a single person architect, but at least from a business who's done Salesforce projects for over a time to roughly have a clue how long that takes if you're not bombarding them with too many user stories that go beyond. And that's something you learn by experience, or you have somebody prepared you a table with lots of combination and you go into the table and say that one. Is there any other way to get that feeling other than experience?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm knowing that we have an agile evangelist in our group. I would say, and also from my experience, I'd say the truth is never the Excel sheet. So if you need the Excel sheet to perform well as a group, then there's something wrong, probably. Sorry, Jodie, I cut you short.
Sorry. It's just interesting that you put this into skills and personality traits. So it's like you're saying that you can learn those skills, but these personality traits are baked in if you don't already have those. Or that they come with age and wisdom. So, what from your running of this thing? What's your thoughts on that? Learning versus experience on those splits.
The interesting bit is basically you can some of what I try to call a trait is something that can develop over time. Still. Traits, but in psychology, traits also develop over time. But if Szandor brings this to the one question, can you give me an exact estimate of a project size? Inner self says, I don't know. How should I know? I probably don't verbalize it that way. I probably say, I don't know. What are the factors? What is the other things that you do? So again, but the first thing I have that helped me to give better estimates, for example, is the experience that whenever I gave an exact estimate, it was wrong. Hence, I have to find ways to get more information but the awareness that I will be wrong, whatever I do, is something that I had to develop over time, which turned into a trait to my personality, to always challenge myself and question if I can even solve this problem. That's probably the thing that modesty. So, and I'm not even telling that this classification is exact. I just wanted to see where the myth of the sage and the expert and the know-it-all is. I suppose the best thing to say is you're the best of a hero when you're not try not to be the hero and save the day. The things that you will do on the way will prove of more value than the actual thing the act of trying to be a hero.
Again, it's modesty. You bring it all back down to modesty.
Indeed. It's probably is empathy, is
Yeah.
modesty probably the number one skill that you or trait that you need to have in that role?
I think it's so hard because I think it's very within each role that you are. Some
Yeah, okay.
need different things. Like some people need conflict resolution, you know, as a number one trait to work in that organization. You know, some organizations really got to get into technical details really quickly with them. You know, it just so I think for me personally, my number one skill is embedding myself with the business and learning the business. So that is my where I start my journey as helping any businesses.
Yeah. That gives us an excellent way out of this session, and to close it off on an endless discussion. Can each of you probably try and say what kind of, in that system of things, what kind of trait or skill or expertise is the thing that helps or helped you most in your role? Probably, if we combine all 7 of us, we'll have the ideal architect after that exercise.
All right, I like to tap into the last comment from Jodie, and I will summarize it as context. Context is everything, right? There is no one solution, and this we can apply to many things. In terms of, we mentioned settle before, and I think settle is slightly dangerous. A little bit settle, but a little bit unsettle, right? To keep ourselves in our toes. And for me, there are a couple things important in the matter. One is that you can handle and enjoy complexity, right? The myriad of connections and the emerging fluidity. You need to enjoy this. And second is the joy part of it.
Thank you. That's really good.
Did you just say joy? Yes, you did.
Yes. Indeed, it's feeling convenient in situations where others, due to the lack of stability and clarity, lack feeling lack that exact thing, to feel at ease with that.
Do what
very
you
interesting.
love. And love what you do. Life is perishable. Above all, whatever you do, enjoy it.
I join in the joy thing, but am I the one who takes joy out of handling complexity and uncertainty? No, I'm the opposite. I take joy in analyzing things, in taking them apart, into getting stability and a firm fundament of knowledge on those things. And I love to talk about them whilst doing so. Hence why I love to go on talks and present what I recently learned, because it helps to communicate and share things, which is also very important. And it gives me feedback, and especially talking in a 20-minute or 30-minute format means to rethink it completely, to make it graspable for an audience who hasn't had 2 weeks, 6 weeks, a few months to go into the topic. And that brings me joy as well.
So I would say that's from Christian, that the bullet of analysis, because analyzing the problem was raised. And also another thing that was mentioned is the team player, that you actually guide them throughout the solution. You talk them through. So it combines a lot of different attributes. You need to talk to people. You need to explain the situation. You need to convince them why they should do it that way. So that's teamwork and analysis, I would say.
And building on that is the teacher aspect, which is what I often do, is help people understand what it is. Especially they just purchased all those licenses from Salesforce. Actually, what does that mean? What is that going to give you? What is it going to? What can you make out of it? Just that complete low level education around what is cloud, what is multi-tenanted architecture, what is integration.
That's the Oh my goodness. I come from a humanities standpoint, and meaning actually is a concept that is so important when it comes to the humanities. And basically what you say is creating some kind of meaning to actions that other people probably mandated is so much of a concept for education and general social interactions between humans. I completely lost track if everybody brought his or her points to the table. Did
Andre,
we forget someone?
oh, great.
Yeah, I would like to add something. So for me, it's well, two things. So creativity, and that's then handle complexity, and of course then having a creative way of handling that. And out of that, for me, what I usually say is I really like creating structure where there is chaos at the moment or before.
Structure in chaos. Oh wow, yeah, very good.
So we're all talking about the Kampen quadrant. Have you seen that one? Complex, chaotic. There's 4 things: complexity. Yeah, I can't remember what they are, but it's connected.
I don't have it at hand at the moment. I know exactly what you're talking about. We should talk about the system theory of things, because this is actually when you educate, when you grow in a personal role, and the chaotic theory and another thing is an exact Szandor. It is also commenting by just holding back, right? This is something. Okay. As we're opening up another big and huge topic, we should probably. Are we set here with our central circle of values and things? This is just the beginning. We could talk for hours, and we could even talk for how to shape organizations to respond to change. We will certainly do it, probably next episode. For today, we found kind of a thing what an architect actually does. We hope you, as the more than 5-year-old, will understand. Probably not. Ask us your questions. But this is the essence that we found, what makes us as professionals in certain kinds of architect, non-architect, generalist roles successful. And it obviously boils down to meaning and purpose in activities that people do. Wonderful. A technical discussion in a technical field that rarely touches technology. Isn't that wonderful?
Fabulous.
Excellent day. Thank you very much for contributing, and we'll see you soon on our YouTube series of the Salesforce MVPs.